Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are, and welcome to our webinar today on how to enter the Stevie Awards for Women in Business. I'm Michael Gallagher, the president and founder of the Stevie Awards, and on the call with us today is my colleague Ann White, who, among other things, edits our weekly email newsletter, the Stevie Awards Update, and she also oversees much of the judging process. So please say hello, Ann.
Yes, hi everybody. Welcome to the webinar.
You should see my screen, and what I have up on the screen now is the Stevie Awards homepage. And we'll jump right into this. I expect it'll take about half an hour in total, including your questions. We're going to run through the basic steps of how to submit nominations to this year's Stevie Awards for Women in Business. And the overview of what we're going to be talking about is this. We'll talk about what the awards are and their history, what the schedule is for the 2011 awards, including the entry deadlines. There are 3 of them. When we'll notify finalists and when the awards dinner is. How to review and select categories, which is really the most important thing we'll be talking about today. Once you've determined your categories, how to prepare and submit entries. Some best practices that we recommend you follow as you go through the entry process based on what we've observed over the past 9 years. And then we'll entertain your questions. In your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar control panel, you should see a box where you can type a question, or I don't know whether it's labeled chat or questions, but there's a place where you can pose a question to us in writing, and we'll review your questions, and Ann will address them to me at the end of our time together, and I expect that we should have you off this call by 1:40 p.m. Eastern Time at the very latest. So let's go ahead and begin. The Stevie Awards are one of 4 Stevie Awards competitions. The Stevie Award is the trophy. The Stevie Awards for Women in Business is one of those 4 competitions. The other ones being the International Business Awards, the American Business Awards, and the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, all of which have their own categories, their own schedules. They take place in different places. For example, this year's International Business Awards will take place in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates in October. The American Business Awards is in New York 2 weeks from yesterday. The Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service has been in Miami Beach the past couple of years, but I believe it's going to return to Las Vegas next year. And you can learn about all of them on our homepage. If you go to stevieawards.com, you'll see that all 4 of them are listed there. You can link to their websites and learn more about them. But we're only going to talk about the Stevie Awards for Women in Business today. The Stevie Awards for Women in Business are now in their 8th year, and the Stevie Award trophy, which is really the only common thing among the 4 Stevie Awards competitions, is made by the same company that makes the Oscar, the Emmy, and other famous awards. It is roughly 16 inches tall if you count the crystal triangle held aloft by Stevie. It weighs about 8 pounds, so it's a very substantial award, and we've been told by past winners that when they win a Stevie Award and they actually hold a Stevie Award, no matter how many awards they've won in the past, they actually feel that they finally won an award. It's a rather substantial trophy, and we hope that you have an opportunity to hoist one yourself this year. The Stevie Awards for Women in Business, like all of our awards programs, is web-centric, meaning that almost everything happens online. You request the entry kit online. It's fulfilled to you by email. You can research how to choose categories and prepare your entries online, as we'll show you in a moment. You can actually submit your entries online, pay your entry fees online, and then all of the judging takes place online. And then most of the notification to entrants about the disposition of their entries takes place electronically as well. The Stevie Awards for Women in Business website, which you can get to from the Stevie Awards homepage, is here, and we'll spend a few minutes going through different parts of this website here in a moment. One of the nice things about all of the Stevie Awards programs from my perspective is that it's not just household name companies and individuals from household name companies that win these awards. It's a really nice mix of very small companies, startups, and women-owned businesses tend to be predominantly small businesses. which is why we keep the entry fees for this particular program much lower than they are in other Stevie Awards programs. Mid-sized, more established businesses, and even household name companies. And here are just a few of the household name companies that have been represented in the winner's circle in the Stevie Awards for Women in Business in just the past 2 years alone. So it is a nice mix of small companies, mid-sized companies, and small organizations, large organizations that are represented in the winner's circle. And I use the term company liberally. The awards are open to all organizations, for-profit and non-profit, large and small, public and private. So it's not just companies. We do get a lot of entries, and we welcome entries from nonprofit organizations and associations and government agencies, and they are welcome. Here is a schedule for the 2011 Stevie Awards. We just issued the entry kit last week. Entries opened on this past Friday. And there are 3 entry deadlines. The first one being an early bird deadline of July 27th. The entry fees are discounted if you submit your entry through July 27th, so before the 28th. And we'll talk about the entry fees in a moment. The next deadline after that will be August 31st. And then the final deadline will be September 30th. We apply a minimal late fee of $35 per entry for entries submitted after August 31st on top of the entry fee. So we'll take entries through September 30th. Preliminary judging will begin right after the August 31st deadline and will continue through September and mid-October. In mid-October, we'll announce the finalists and notify finalists, and we typically do that about a month in advance of the awards dinner. We also typically notify the finalists a day before we make the public announcement, so that if you're a finalist, you'll have a day's notice that you'll be announced as a finalist the following day. And that way you have some time to notify your colleagues and your executives, and you have the opportunity to prepare your own press release announcing your finalist status if you choose to do that. So we'll notify finalists on October 11th this year, and then publicly announce them both on our website and via press release on October 12th. And then the 8th Annual Awards Dinner is Friday evening, November 11th in New York. We've been doing it on Friday evenings for the past couple of years. It seems to be very popular. Since we moved the event from I believe we had it on Thursday a couple of years and even on a Monday. Since we moved it to Friday, the attendance has really blossomed. And it's a terrific event, as anyone who's attended in the past can tell you, and we'll show you how to access photographs and video clips of last year's event here in a moment. The awards banquet is typically attended by 300 to 350 finalist nominees and their guests. Not everyone in the room is a woman. Probably 60% are women, and there are many men there accompanying their nominee significant others. The event is broadcast live on radio nationwide in the USA by the Business Talk Radio Network. It's on about 150 stations across the country. BTR tells us that the broadcast is typically listened to by anywhere between 800,000 and 1 million listeners. And if there isn't a Business Talk radio station in your area, or if you're outside the United States, you can listen in live through their website at businesstalkradio.net. And attendance is not required to win. We do notify finalists in advance, as I said, but you do not have to attend the banquet to be a winner. If you're announced as a winner and you're not there, we'll simply congratulate you and send it off to you at another time. So who's eligible to participate in the Stevie Awards for Women in Business this year? The awards are open to all organizations and individuals worldwide, so anyone can submit nominations. Now, since we do charge entry fees, most of the nominations we get are self-nominations, meaning an organization is nominating itself or individuals within the organization, or an individual is nominating herself. But that's not to stop anyone from nominating anyone else as long as they pay the entry fee. This year's Stevie Awards for Women in Business will recognize achievements since the beginning of July of last year. That means that in the nominations that you're going to prepare, while you may talk about achievements from before July of 2010 as a way of setting the stage, providing background, your entry should really focus on what your nominee has achieved since the beginning of July of last year. Now there are a couple of exceptions to that. There is a Best New Company category, and that company will recognize companies that have been around since the start of July of 2009. There is also no eligibility time frame for website and blog entries, for smartphone and tablet app entries, or for the Lifetime Achievement Award category. So if you want to nominate the founder of your company in the Lifetime Achievement Award category, for example, your nomination can focus on her entire life's achievement. So what are the steps to entering the Stevie Awards for Women in Business? These are the recommended steps. Now you don't have to follow all of them in this order, but we really recommend that you do this so that you have the strongest overall sense of what the awards are about, the categories that you have to choose from, and how to do this the right way. The first step is to request and get the entry kit, and I suspect that most of you have done that already, since the entry kit touts this webinar that we're having today. But if you haven't done that yet, you're going to do that through the Stevie Awards for Women in Business website. And here on the home page, on the right-hand side, you'll see a place that says how to enter. And the first link is to request an entry kit. So just click on that and fill out this form. And after you fill out this form, our website will email to you immediately the online entry kit, which I will show you in a moment. It's not a hard requirement to get the entry kit, but we strongly recommend it. As you'll see, the entry kit primarily points you to the relevant resources on the website. So if you pour through the website and read everything, you're pretty much going to know what the entry kit tells you to do. But the benefit, we think, of getting the entry kit is that it points you to the right places, and you don't have to read through the entire website. So what does the entry kit look like? This is this year's entry kit. It basically summarizes the steps that you have to follow. So you can see below here under how to prepare and submit your entries. The steps are to choose your categories, review the rules of the competition, and submit your entries. That's pretty easy to do. There is an entry cover sheet, as you can see down at the bottom. You're only going to use the entry cover sheet if you're going to submit your entries to us by email, postal mail, or fax. We understand that some cases you may want to or need to do that. We do recommend that you submit your entries online. It's very easy to do, and I'll show you in a few moments the steps that you can take to do that. There are also links to relevant resources on the Stevie Awards for Women in Business website related to the process of preparing and submitting entries. For example, the calendar, answers to frequently asked questions, the entire list of categories, a list of what's new and different in the awards this year. We'll look at that in a few moments. Links to the list of last year's winners so that you can read last year's winning entries. So all of that's summarized here in the entry kit, and you'll know that we've added this year a link to the Google Translate feature so that if you want to read the entry kit in Danish, for example, that feature will automatically translate the entry kit into the language you'd like to read it in to do that. So that's the entry kit. The link to this will be sent to you when you request it on the website filling out that form. The questions we get most often here in the Stevie Awards office from potential entrants, either by mail or email, is you have a lot of categories. How do I choose the categories that I think I want to be interested in? If you pose that question to us, we would ask you the following two questions. What do you want to be recognized for? That's the first question. And the second question is, do you want to win a Stevie Award in any category or in specific categories? Very often people will say to us, you have such a lovely trophy, we really want to win one of these things, or one or more of these things. And it doesn't matter to us which category we win in, we just want to win one. In other cases, people will say to us, we only want to win in this specific category. We want recognition for our CEO in the best executive category, or we want recognition for this particular marketing campaign in your marketing campaign categories. Depending on your answer to that question, our response to you could be quite different. So as you review the list of categories and think about the categories that you think you might want to enter, ask yourself these two questions. What is it you want to be recognized for? And do you want to win in any category or specific categories? Now there are four types of categories. There are categories that recognize individuals. And in the case of Stevie Awards for Women in Business, that's primarily in categories such as Best Entrepreneur and Best Executive. Now we have various flavors of those, as I'll show you in a second when we get to the look at the list of categories. There are entrepreneurs and executives at service businesses and at non-service businesses. There are categories for entrepreneurs and executives at organizations of various sizes, up to 100 employees, up to 2,500 employees, and more than 2,500 employees. And we do that so that the judges are comparing apples to apples. They're not comparing an executive at a small company of 50 people that's been around 2 years against a senior vice president at a Fortune 100 company. So let's jump out and look at that list of categories. And from the Stevie Awards for Women in Business homepage, you would get there by clicking on the awards, and we come right to the list of categories. And I mentioned that there are four types of categories, and you'll see them somewhat summarized here. We do have some new categories for products and services and for communications and marketing campaigns, which we'll talk about here in a moment when we review what's new this year. As we scroll down, you can see the list of categories under individuals. And the first thing that's listed here are the entry requirements for those categories. So for individuals, for example, it's an essay of up to 500 words describing the nominee's achievements since July 1st of last year, a biography of up to 100 words of the nominee, and optional but highly recommended URLs to any online news stories, press releases, videos, images, what have you, that you'd like to provide to better tell the story of your nominee's achievements for the judges. Now that is optional but highly recommended. Very often nominees will say to us, well, we don't really have any news stories or we don't have any video clips. At the very least, provide a link to the website of the nominee's organization. At the very least, do that so that the judges have a way to get some more background information about the nominee. But as you can see here, there are various flavors of the Best Entrepreneur category and also the Best Executive category. There are other individual categories such as Best Young Entrepreneur for entrepreneurs under the age of 30. There are Best Executive and Best Entrepreneur categories for entrepreneurs and executives in various parts of the world, for example, in Canada or in EMEA, which is Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America. And I mentioned that there are entry fees, and I'll tell you what the entry fees are in a moment. We have one category in the competition that has no entry fee, and that's the very last individual category you see here listed, which is Employee of the Year. If you'd like to nominate a non-executive female employee of your organization for Employee of the Year, there is no entry fee for that category. Now, as we scroll down and look at the other categories, you can see there are categories to recognize entire organizations, and there are some eligibility requirements, additional eligibility requirements for those categories. Organizations that meet one or both of the following criteria are eligible to be nominated in the company organization categories, and they include at least 50% of the shares in the organization are owned by women, and or the CEO or other principal manager of the organization is a woman, and at least 40% of the management team is comprised of women. And we added those additional criteria for these categories last year to ensure that only women-owned or women-run organizations are eligible to be included in these categories. And I won't go through these categories at length. You can do this at your leisure to look at all of the various categories that are available to nominate your entire organization. Now here are some new categories we've added this year. There are product and service categories. The entry requirements are somewhat similar to those for nominating entire organizations or individuals. But in this case, the nominee is going to be the new product or service. And these are new products or services that were introduced to the marketplace since the beginning of July last year. There are 6 of them for beauty and personal care products, fashion and accessories, fitness, health and nutrition, home, hobby and leisure, media and entertainment, and then others. So if you've got a product or service that you'd like to nominate that doesn't fit neatly into one of those other categories, then we have a category for that as well. We have product or service categories in the other 3 Stevie Awards competitions, and they are always among the most popular categories, which is why we've added them to the Stevie Awards for Women in Business this year. Now, other categories we've added this year are those to nominate communications and marketing campaigns that were created by or for women. And in these categories, the requirements are, again, an essay, but this time describing the nominated campaign. It's genesis, development, planning, commission, and performance to date, a brief bio of the person who led the development of the campaign, and then again, optional but very highly recommended, especially for these categories, links to online work samples, product reviews, news stories, and so on to flesh out the story. So we've got 13 different communications or PR campaign categories, and I believe it's 7 marketing categories. And again, these are for campaigns that were created by or for women. The media categories, which is the last group, as you can see here, are categories that we've had for a while. The website and blog categories we've had for a while. We've added 2 new ones this year. Smartphone or tablet app of the year, recognizing excellence in smartphone and tablet apps produced by or for women. And there's no eligibility period for that category, so it doesn't matter when the app was first produced. And we've added a video of the year category, which does have the eligibility requirement, time frame requirement, and that recognizes excellence in videos produced by or for women. So those are the types of categories available. And again, to get there from the Stevie Awards for Women in Business homepage, click on the awards, and that'll take you right to the list of categories. So what's new and different for 2011? We do have a page to summarize that on the Stevie Awards for Women in Business homepage, on the entry kit. So if we click on the entry kit, you'll see a link in the entry kit. So let's go back to English. One of the resources listed in the entry kit is what's new and different for the 2011 awards. And that'll take you to this page on the website, which sums up everything that's new and different this year. How the eligibility time frame is different from last year, what the entry deadlines are, the new categories, changed categories, categories that we did away with from last year, and there are a couple, and the institution of shipping fees. And if you've entered the Stevie Awards for Women in Business before, I advise you to take a look at that. That is a new feature this year. We are going to charge you a nominal fee for the shipment of your Stevie Award trophy or finalist certificate if you're not represented at the November 11th awards dinner to accept it. So do take a look at that. So that's easy enough to find from the entry kit. The 80-20 rule applies in all of the Stevie Awards competitions as it does in many other things in life, and that is that 80% of the entries tend to be submitted to about 20% of the categories. Now that may change somewhat this year with the addition of our new categories, and there are quite a few new categories. But in the past, these are the categories that have gotten the most entries. And we point this out to you because I mentioned earlier that we would ask you whether you want to be recognized in any category or only in specific categories. And if your answer is the latter, you'd only want to be recognized in one of these categories, you should know that you're going to have quite a bit of company in those categories. We don't want to dissuade you from entering these categories if you want to do that, but these tend to be the most popular categories. Other categories get somewhat fewer entries. We have a number of categories that get a lot of entries, and some categories not so many. And if it's all the same to you, we would recommend that you enter the categories that get fewer entries than the categories that get more ones. But again, you may feel that these are the categories that you want to win, and I don't want to dissuade you from submitting a great entry in these categories, because if you submit a great entry, no matter what your competition is, the judges are going to recognize it. So let's say that you've gone through the list of categories, you understand what the entry requirements are for those categories, you've written your entries, you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, you've prepared your set of links to online supporting materials, and you're ready to enter. The next step we recommend you take is to register on the website. And you'll find a link to this in the entry kit, for example. Going back to the entry kit, you'll see a link to the register button here under how to prepare and submit entries. And that will essentially take you to this page on the website. And this registration page is, once you complete this, you'll essentially have created an account in our online entry submission system. And I won't spend a lot of time on this form. You can figure this out. It basically asks for contact information, and the person who's listed here is going to receive from us all correspondence, most of which is by email, about the disposition of the nominations submitted. The only thing I do want to point out is these first two fields. The first one asks for the names and city and state and nation of the organization being nominated or the nominee's organization. The second field asks for your organization's name, and sometimes that's different because probably 30 to 40% of the entries we receive are submitted by public relations agencies or marketing agencies on behalf of their corporate clients. So, in this case, an entry might be submitted on behalf of ABC Company in Paris, France. But the entry is actually submitted by XYZ Public Relations Agency. And in that case, I can't spell relations. In that case, the contact information would be for the person at XYZ Public Relations who's submitting the entries, because they're going to want to get all the correspondence about the disposition of the entries. This 400-character description here, which is basically just 2 sentences about the organization of the nominated organization or the organization of the nominee, if the nominee is an individual, which is not part of the entry. Many people think that's part of the entry. It's not. It's just 2 sentences describing the organization. That description should be about, in this example, about ABC Company, not about the Public Relations Agency. So that's the only thing I want to point out about this form. Now, once you submit this form and are in your online account, it's very intuitive about how to access the online entry form for your category or categories, how to copy and paste your entry into that form, and to save it and submit it. Now, once you submit it, you'll be offered the opportunity to pay your entry fees by credit card or by check. And if you're outside the USA, we also have the option where you can pay your entry fees by wire transfer. And here then are the entry fees. Through July 27th, the entry fee is $105 per entry, regardless of category. I mentioned earlier that's quite a bit less than the entry fees for other Stevie Awards competitions, which tend to be in the $200 to $400 range and even more. But we do keep the fees in the Stevie Awards for Women in Business low because we recognize that most women-owned businesses tend to be very small and don't have the budgets to support higher entry fees, so there you have it. After August 31st, after July 27th, we raised the entry fee by $30 to $135. And then after August 31st, we apply the $35 late fee, so the total fee per entry jumps to $170 per entry after August 31st, and we will accept entries this year through September 30th. And again, you can pay those fees by credit card, by check, or by wire transfer. I'm not going to demonstrate for you the judging process because it's too lengthy, and I promise you we wouldn't keep it that long today. But I'll tell you how it works. The judging works in 2 phases. The preliminary phase, which will begin right after the August 31st deadline, determines the finalists. And each year we have about 75 to 100 volunteers who apply on the Stevie Awards for Women in Business website to participate in the preliminary judging process. And we review all of those applications, and if we accept an applicant, we assign them categories based on their expertise and experience. Preliminary judging takes place online in September through mid-October. The average scores of the preliminary judges determine the finalists, and we do acknowledge all judges in perpetuity on the website and the program. So we can look at the list, for example, of the preliminary judges from last year's Stevie Awards for Women in Business. They're all listed on the website. including their names, their titles, affiliations, and locations. And as you can see here on the right-hand side of this page, all of the prior year judges are still acknowledged on the website. And these are the preliminary judges. And the way that you become a preliminary judge is by volunteering on the website. And here's the form. And I believe there's a link to this form on the home page. Yeah, here you go. Volunteer to be a judge on the home page. Learn more takes you to this page. And if you'd like to apply to be a preliminary judge, just fill out this form and submit it, and we'll review your application and contact you on or about September 1st about participating. The two judges, preliminary judges who score the most entries, win 2 free tickets to the November 11th awards dinner. Starting this year, we are going to send all preliminary and final judges a certificate of appreciation suitable for framing, acknowledging your participation in the judging process. And that's something new this year as well. The final judging, which basically is the second round of judging for the finalist entries, takes place in late October, and those participants are invited. And we are just now starting the process of inviting this year's final judges. But here are last year's final judges, which you can find on the website if you click on the board on the navigation bar. We've developed a tradition of inviting the prior year's Stevie Award winners to be among the current year's final judges. So many of these final judges from last year had won Stevie Awards in 2009. But there are also representatives of our sponsors on here, representatives of key corporations and associations who work with or aid women in business in the U.S. and elsewhere, are also invited to participate in the final judging. And again, the final judges are all invited. And it'll take place in late October. So the Stevie Award winners are known well in advance of the awards dinner, which is why we say that attendance at the awards dinner bears no impact on the final results of the competition. This is probably the most important slide of our webinar today, and these are best practices that we recommend that you follow to make sure that you have the very best chance of winning a Stevie Award with the great entries you're going to submit this year. And the first thing we recommend you do is to read last year's winning entries, and they're all published with very few exceptions on the website. And where are you, Mr. Website? Well, here's the website. Let's go back there. If you click on the awards on the navigation bar, it takes you to categories. But you'll see under the awards, the first link says honorees. If you click on that, it'll take you to the entire list of honorees from 2010. Not only the finalists in each category, but the Stevie Award winner in each category. And you can see those for all prior years as well. And if you click on the title of any of the Stevie Award winning entries, so let's click, for example, on this nomination of Amanda Welliver with Paradigm Esteem in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, who won the Stevie Award last year for Best Canadian Entrepreneur, we can read the entire nomination of Amanda as submitted by Paradigm Esteem. So these are examples of entries that the judges scored very highly. So we recommend that you read some number of these entries, especially the ones that won in the categories that you may be interested in entering this year, because they provide good models of entries that judges have scored highly. Now, very often entrants ask us, well, we have confidential information in our nominations. We want to make sure that it doesn't get published in the entries if we're a Stevie Award winner. We always give Stevie Award winners the opportunity to redact any confidential or non-public information from their entries before it's published. So you can be reassured that if you're a Stevie Award winner this year, you will first have an opportunity to redact any non-public information from your entry before it's published. We do recommend that if you ever have any questions about categories or how to write your entries or submit them or what the judging criteria are, by all means ask them. You're not penalized in any way by asking questions. We love it when people ask us questions about how to do this or that, because we feel that we're helping them to submit the best entries possible, which we want to do. We treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter whether you're with a Fortune 10 company or a 2-day-old startup. We're going to treat you the same. You may have great achievements to cite in your entries, but if you don't tell your story well, if you don't write well, the judges may not pick up on that. So it's important to tell your story well and to write your entries well. If you've been charged with submitting entries on behalf of your organization or on behalf of your nominee and you're not a good writer, you know what? Find someone who is. Find someone in your organization who writes well. Contract with someone who could do that for you. If you want some recommendations from us on PR agents or contract writers who could help you do that, by all means contact us. We'll put you in touch with some people. But telling your story well is very important. It's also important to write your entries before you submit them online. When you get to that point of filling out that registration form on the website to create an entry submission account, you should have already written your entries so that at that point it's only going to take you a few minutes to copy and paste them into the online entry form. And we emphasize that because we've heard horror stories from entrants in the past that they created an entry submission account and they started to write their entry online and they spent an hour writing it and then the power went out in their house or they're in their office and they lost their entry. We don't want that to happen to you. So write your entries first so that you have a permanent record of them, and it's just a matter of copying and pasting them online. If you can afford it, and we hope you can afford it because we keep the entry fees low, enter multiple categories. As you'll see, many of the categories are similar. For example, best overall company, you might be able to submit the same nomination to fastest growing company or most innovative company. If you're able to enter multiple categories, it's a hedge. One category may get 200 entries, and another category you may get 10 entries. And unless you've got the most amazing entry ever submitted, you might have a better chance of winning in the 10 entry category than the 200 entry category. So enter multiple categories if you can. It's very important when you fill out that online registration form, and to emphasize that, I'm going to take you back to that. Two of the things that you're going to specify here are the industry of the nominee or the nominated organization and the number of employees in that organization. As you'll see as you go through last year's winners or winners from the year before, in many categories we give multiple awards based on the nominee's industry and the size of the organization. So it's important that you get those things right when you create that online entry submission account. And finally, there are numerous ways to stay up to date with what's happening with the Stevie Awards. We do have a weekly email newsletter. We do have a Twitter feed. We are on Facebook and LinkedIn. I encourage you to follow us in one way or another. Ann edits the weekly email newsletter. We think it's a terrific newsletter. It's not just about us. It does feature, here's an example from last year. It does feature Q&As and interviews and profiles of past winners. It's a good read. It has 20,000 subscribers around the world. We advise you to take a look at that. Just a few other things before we get to question and answer. There are sponsorships available if you're interested in getting the name of your organization in front of the many hundreds of organizations around the world that are going to participate in the Stevie Awards for Women in Business. If you click on Our Sponsors on the navigation bar on the Stevie Awards for Women in Business website, it'll take you to a page where you can learn more about that. And there we go. We do encourage you to volunteer to be a judge. Even if you're an entrant, you can be a judge. We have the means to make sure that you're not assigned categories in which you're also an entrant or in which you've submitted entries. So you're welcome, if qualified, to judge other categories. So by all means, if you'd like to do that, complete that application form on the Stevie Awards for Women in Business website. And with that, I see that we're at 1:40, so we have a few minutes for questions. And Ann, have you been monitoring questions posted by our listeners today?
Yes, indeed I have. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Somebody's asked, you named the most popular categories. What are the least popular categories?
Least popular. We don't really assemble a list of least popular categories. It seems like everybody asks that question. Somebody asks that question every year. I would answer that question this way. If there are categories that you're interested in, or when you know the categories that you're interested in, contact us, and we will give you feedback about that particular list of categories. So if you go through the list and there are 5 or 6 categories that you think you'd like to enter, email the list to us, and we'll give you honest feedback about those categories and how many entries we think we're likely to get in those this year. So I'll answer that question that way.
Okay, well, I think that answers the next question that I got, which was, can I change my category after I've submitted?
You can change the category after you submit it before the judging begins. So if you submit your entry in July or August and email us or call us and say, you know what, I submitted it in category A, but I really want it to be in category B, we can do that. Now, very often we change categories proactively because we think that it wasn't submitted in the optimal category, and we'll do that on your behalf. But after judging begins, in mid-September, for example, we won't change a category unless you convince us there's a good reason to do that. And the reason for that is that judges have already judged it in one category, and it's not fair to have scores for that entry in one category and then scores for it, other scores for it in another. So yes, through August 31st.
Okay, and another category question here. If a company had won a category the previous year, for example, Best Overall Company, are they ineligible for the following year?
Absolutely not, and that's a question we get a lot. One year has nothing to do with the next. The judges are different. Other than publishing the list of honorees on the website, the institutional memory for this year's judging process to the past is zero. So in many of the Stevie Awards competitions, we've had individuals or organizations who win in the same category year after year, and there's nothing to prevent you from doing that. So there's no restriction, there's no exclusion to winning again this year or being recognized again this year if you were recognized last year.
Okay, well, that's all here. Another question just came in, which is, can you submit the exact same entry to different categories?
The answer is yes, if applicable. The gist of a category may be slightly different. For example, you may prepare a nomination for the Best Overall Company of the Year category, and you may also want to enter the Fastest Growing Company of the Year category. And if you look at the requirements for the Fastest Growing category, you're going to want to focus really on your growth in that entry, and that may be slightly different from what you focused on in your Best Overall Company category. So as long as you're meeting the requirements and the spirit of the category with the same entry, you can do that. We also would advise you, if you plan to do that, to write a core entry and then to modify, modify slightly, if necessary, the entry to meet the needs of another category.
Okay. Well, that seems to be it. I think that you've answered a lot of people's questions before they got to ask them.
Well, and I suppose that's a sign of a good webinar. Thank you. But as I mentioned, questions will pop up tonight or tomorrow or August 31st. So by all means, email us or telephone us. I think we even have a slide for that. There we go. Our help email address is help@stevieawards.com. Our telephone number in the U.S. is 1-703-547-8389. Call us or email us at any time. Email is always the best way because us workaholics are always working, so even on the weekend we'll get to your emails. And a recording of this webcast will be available tomorrow and will be posted through the entry kit. So if you would like to review it again or share it with colleagues, that'll be available to you. So thank you for tuning in today, and thank you for your interest in the Stevie Awards for Women in Business. I hope we found this helpful. Thank you, Anne, for helping out today.
No problem.
And good day and good luck in the competition.